Afternoon, and welcome to the Public Works Committee for February the 1st, 2021. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and are temporarily archived on the city's website. As well, a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings. Members are reminded of the 5-minute time limit, which will be adhered to during this meeting. Members can submit another request to speak if they require more time to ask questions or make comments. I'll now commence a roll call. Please indicate your presence when I call your name. Councillor Collins?
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Danko? I saw him. There he is. Councillor Danko, we're not hearing you.
Sorry, present.
Thanks. Councillor Farr? I don't see Councillor Farr. He'll be along. Councillor Ferguson?
I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson?
Ward 6 has joined you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ward 6. Councillor Marula?
Good day, Madam Chair. Present.
Good day. Thank you. Councillor Nan?
Good afternoon, present.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Councillor Pauls?
I'm here, thank you.
Good. Councillor Pearson?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I'm present. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Councillor Whitehead? I'm not seeing Councillor Whitehead. Thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, there are changes to the agenda. We have an added petition with respect to item 7.1, the delegation from Timothy Taylor and Tiffany Bound-Kuchar respecting a petition to lower the speed limit on Upper Gage Avenue between Stone Church Road East and Rymel Road East. We also have an added notice of motion, item 11.1, respecting road resurfacing and sidewalk replacement on Oakland Drive between Kentley Drive and Ellingwood Avenue and Ellingwood Avenue in Hamilton, which is Ward 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. May I please have a mover and seconder to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Nan, seconded by Councillor Ferguson. Is there any discussion on the agenda as amended? Thank you. We'll require an electronic vote. Please indicate your vote now. And it's up. And that carries 9-0. Declarations of interest? Seeing none. May I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes of the January 11th meeting? Moved by Councillor Pauls, seconded by Councillor Marula. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, we'll require an electronic vote. You'll find it on your screen in a minute. And the vote carried 9-0. So we're moving on to section 7, public hearings and written delegation, virtual delegate. Did I miss something? I probably missed a whole page then. I'm sorry, 6.1. This is a consent item. 6.1 is intersection control list PW 21001 for wards 1, 8, 9, and 13. Are there any questions regarding item 6.1? Seeing none, I need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Danko. And we will require this, that will approve the recommendations in the report, and will require an electronic vote. And it's on the screen. Thank you, and that carries unanimously. Now we're at item 7, hearings. Members are reminded that questions of the delegations are for clarification purposes only and not for debate. Item 7.1 is Timothy Taylor and Tiffany Bound-Kuchar respecting a petition to lower the speed limit on Upper Gage Avenue between Stone Church Road East and Rymel Road East in Ward 6. And this delegation was approved on January the 11th. So I'd like to call upon Timothy Taylor and Tiffany Bound-Kuchar to delegate respecting that petition, and you will have 5 minutes to present, and I'll start the clock when you start talking. Timothy or Tiffany? please unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm here now.
Perfect.
Mr. Chair, members of the Public Works Committee, I am Timothy Taylor. Unfortunately, I have kids home with school right now, so Tiffany is handling that responsibility as we speak. But I'm here today to present you with a petition to lower the speed limit on Upper Gage Avenue between Stonechurch Road and Rymo Road East to 40 kilometers an hour. This stretch is currently 50 kilometers an hour, and it's our belief this change is both necessary and overdue given the recent tragedy that befell a Templemead Elementary School student, Jude Strickland. I'd like to start by thanking Councillor Jackson for all the help he's been throughout this process, remained a constant contact point for us with the city, and moved things forward at an alarming pace. He remains a steadfast representative of the people of the ward, and we appreciate the work he's done so far. That being said, we believe the hard work is just beginning. We'd also like to thank this committee and the traffic department for the work you've already put into the effort of the Templemead Eleanor neighborhoods. We watched the presentation of Councillor Jackson's motion for a safety audit, and we're happy to see it pass unanimously, and I believe the findings of that will help support our petition today. Thank you for all your support. It means a lot to our community, the Strickland family, and all of the parents of Templemead. Jamie Strickland offered the following statement in support of this petition. February 1st marks 2 months to the day that our precious son Jude Strickland was struck and killed by someone driving a pickup truck in a manner that did not respect the fact that kids are crossing the road coming home from school. Had there been a lower speed limit and flashing speed signs on Upper Gage, perhaps Jude would still be alive today. It's our hope as Jude's parents that the City of Hamilton will make roads such as Upper Gage a safer place for kids to get home safely from school. There is more to an efficient road system than simply getting motorists home sooner. We need to make sure pedestrians of all ages, especially children, can also get home. I encourage the city to do what is necessary to make this happen. And again, that was a message from Jamie and Vanessa Strickland, the parents of Jude Strickland. Our petition as delivered contains 166 signatures. Due to COVID-19 and stay-at-home orders, it's been pretty difficult to mobilize the community. I'd like to break down a little bit of this for you to where we have 56 petitions directly from Templemead parents. We have 19 more from the Templemead Eleanor neighborhood and 11 more in Ward 6. That represents 86 from Ward 6 in general that would be directly impacted by this change. The rest of the petitions span the entire city and a little bit beyond. A staggering 62 petitions came to us from the staff at St. Joe's Hospital, one of the places where a victim of a horrific event like the one that spurred this petition are treated. As I mentioned, we're here again to request a speed limit change on that stretch of Upper Gage from Stonechurch to Rymo. Unfortunately, the traffic calming policy that the city enacted precludes this street from calming due to the fact that it's classified as an arterial road. When the school boards made the decision to move away from community grade schools to larger K-8 schools, a situation was created where children as young as 6 years old are forced to cross these arterial roads. We must protect these students. I would say this petition might not go far enough, and the city needs to look at creating an addendum to that policy to create safe spaces on arterial crossings like the one at Upper Gage and Royal Vista. We would like to see the speed limit change with effective signage, including school crossing signs, which do not currently exist anywhere on this stretch of road, and lit 40-kilometer-an-hour zone or community safety zone signs. I was asked if a petition would be forthcoming for these types of signs, but I believe it's implied in this petition that effective signage will make this work. Thank you for your time and all the work you've done so far.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Are there any questions for Timothy? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair Vanderbeek. I have a question through you to Timothy and Tiffany, who of course, they have been just a dynamic duo. And I just want to thank them so much for what they've mobilized in the last couple of months in the community in light of the awful tragedy of the loss of little Jude Strickland's life with the accident on December 1st and eventually his loss of life 2 days later on December 3rd. They've done a yeoman's job. Tim, I want to ask you, can you give the committee possibly a little flavor, even though you couldn't necessarily meet people face to face, but you've got some commentaries on a number of the sheets, the petition sheets, individual sheets. Do you want to give the committee a little further um, insight into what the community was feeling in terms of overall how to make this stretch of upper gauge safer, in spite of the fact that a full light has existed there, school crossing guard, painted crosswalks, but maybe just give a little more feedback on a personal level of what you and Tiffany encountered. Through you, Chairman Vanderbeek, please.
Tim?
Through the chair, thank you for the question, Tom. We heard a lot of people saying that it's just an unsafe stretch of road, and they'd like to see a number of changes far beyond what our petition was already set out to cover. We've been asked for everything from a speed table to be put in on that intersection to raise the intersection. We've been asked if we could get the city to look at reconfiguring the intersection at Stone Church and Upper Gauge we had spoke about this, Tom, with the right-hand turn lane. It's pretty recognized that people just zoom through this stretch, and because it narrows down to 2 lanes right after the Stone Church, there's a lot of jockeying for traffic for people to get by, and I understand that's a lot of what happened in the accident was just jockeying for traffic to get through. I would like to make a note. We were in the Spectator. I don't know if you saw it, but when that photograph was taken in the Spectator, that photograph right there, while we were having that photograph taken with the Spectator photographer there, somebody ran the light in front of the photographer. It's just an unsafe area right now.
Thank you very much, Tim, for further elaborating on the community's both anger, feelings, and what more can be done. Madam Chair, I have some comments, and given our agenda that doesn't seem to be too long, while Tim and Tiffany are still with us, I would love for them to hear from, even in a preliminary way, at your direction, Madam Chair, from Manager Mike Field of the Traffic Department, who's overseeing the upper gauge traffic safety audit that all this committee and council unanimously approved. I think it's important for Tim and Tiffany and for the community listening in, if they could even hear an update from Manager Field of what's been done before Christmas and the comprehensive report that is still hopefully to be forthcoming at our next meeting on February 19th, Madam Chair. Is that possible, please?
Councillor Jackson, for you, of course. Anyway, I'd be happy to do that. And did you have something else to say, sir? So before I go on?
I did, and if the committee's concurrence, if that's okay, I appreciate that. And I just want to say further that Tim and Tiffany have spearheaded this petition. They immediately got in touch with me upon the accident, and we've kept a close communication even through the Christmas holiday season, and trying to work together to ensure this type of tragedy never, ever, ever occurs again, and that Jude's tragic loss of life is not in vain. And I just want to say, Madam Chair, that Tim and Tiffany themselves have children at Templemead Elementary School, and there's 2 major neighborhoods, Templemead, which is on the Templemead side, where the children don't have to cross Upper Gauge, but there's a large community, Eleanor neighborhood, on the west side of Upper Gauge, where several hundred children do cross at that intersection because it's the only intersection, even with the full light, crossing guard and painted crosswalks for them to cross. So I just also I want to give a shout out to a volunteer, Don Sloboda, who lives on Upper Gauge. I delivered to him about 30 slow down signs before Christmas, and before the frost set in, he was gracious enough to put up about 30 of these slow down signs that now dot the landscape of Upper Gauge between Stone Church and Rymel Road as well. And I want to say to Tim and Tiffany as well, with all their volunteer efforts, Superintendent Greg Huss, Madam Chair, of our police department, has not only committed continuously additional police presence along this section of Upper Gauge for speed enforcement and careless driving, but he's also committed to the new traffic safety unit, the TSU, that will mobilize as well to provide even greater visibility and presence as well. And I know as well, finally, Madam Chair, before I turn it over to Manager Mike Field for a comment, I know that part of what Tim and Tiffany have heard from the community, I've heard as well, that curbside southbound lane on Upper Gauge that then narrows at Stone Church intersection. Something needs to be done to realign that or make it a right turn only, possibly photo radar right along that section, possibly a red light camera at Royal Vista. So these additional measures that along with the flashing 40 and the 40 kilometer speed zone reduction, I think will at least send a signal and a message first and foremost to the Strickland family that the loss of their son's life will never, ever, ever be forgotten. And secondly, from a preventative measure, that the city does listen and that the city does care from both the bureaucracy standpoint as well as from the political standpoint on behalf of our communities. And lastly, Madam Chair,
I'm sorry, sir.
I don't think that was from my end, Madam Chair.
No,
Sorry.
it was the timer on your 5 minutes. So if you would bear with me for 1 minute, would someone please like to move a motion that we extend Councillor Jackson's time in case he needs it? Moved by Councillor Paul, seconded by Councillor Ferguson. Could we have a vote on that? So I just want to be clear that I'm timing when you're speaking, sir. Not when people are answering. There we are. It's on your.
Did I get any support from committee, Madam Chair?
Well,
Any at all?
it's hard to tell, but you only got 10 to 0 to carry it.
Thank you. Tim, you can see sometimes there's formalities that even when a counselor's going on, the chair reins them in to say, wait a second, we need to pass a motion. Anyways, I was just going to wrap up, Madam Chair, on a very serious note. I have met with the Strickland family, Pastor Jamie, his wife Vanessa, and their 3 remaining boys, Noah, Blaze, and Haddon. And I met with them at Eleanor Park about a month ago. And they have given me their entire permission to, at the appropriate time, to do a wonderful memorial of some form at that park. Little Jude loved playing on the climber specifically and the other playground toys. And they just think it'd be wonderful to have some new component and or new structure at Eleanor Park with a memorial service at the appropriate time in dedication of Jude's life, and that his loss of life would never be forgotten. I just want to share that with committee because eventually down the road, committee and council will have to support that type of dedication. So, Madam Chair, thank you, committee, for allowing me all this. At the appropriate time, after Manager Field speaks, I would like to not only receive this outstanding work that Tim and Tiffany have done, garnering close to 200 names in such a short time, and again, being COVID sensitive, that every single page was a separate page for a signature, whereas typically, traditionally, you'd have 10, 20 signatures on the same page, but they didn't want any potential cross-contamination. And so I admire them that they even wanted to have single sheet petitioners, and that's how they did the 166 plus names as well. So before I ask to move and receive and refer the petition to Manager Field for his final report, I think it's important, Tim and Tiffany, hear what traffic have done up to now. Madam Chair, please.
Mike Field, you on?
Thank you.
I'm here. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you, yes. Go ahead, sir.
Mike Field, Manager of Transportation Operations. So through the chair to the councillor, we've completed the roadway safety assessment for Upper Gauge, and I'll keep this rather brief because at the next PW meeting, which is on February 19th. We're bringing the results of that audit to that meeting.
Okay, and Manager Field, how about at least, I know Tim and Tiffany and many of my constituents know this, but how about some internal matters before Christmas? You already installed along Upper Gauge to begin enhancement and awareness of that dangerous stretch of road. Through you, Madam Chair, please.
Mike?
Through the chair to the councillor, we installed, I think on December 21st, digital speed signs on both southbound and northbound Upper Gauge, close to Royal Vista intersection. And then we also installed pedestrian countdown timers on all legs of the Royal Vista intersection as well. And both those were completed, I believe, on December 21st.
Terrific. And lastly, for the petition Tim and Tiffany have presented today, Manager Field, the 40 kilometers, flashing lights, possible photo radar, red light camera, realignment of the curb lane on Stone Church. Are you taking all of those things under advisement as part of your final report? Through you, Madam Chair. I think it's important Tim and Tiffany and the community hear this.
Manager Field?
Through the chair to councillor, all of those items will be addressed in that report at the next PW meeting.
Terrific. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Manager Field. I know you've made this a top priority. Could I ask through you, Madam Chair, since Tim is still part of our delegation, is there anything, Tim, from what I've said or from what Manager Field said that either you're encouraged by or further wish to add to?
Tim?
No, I just want to thank everybody for the hard work and support that we've had so far, and thank traffic, especially for those measures. I forgot to mention them as we were going through, but thank for those measures. We've noticed, even just driving through in our day-to-day traffic, that traffic has calmed a little bit with the speed limit signs, the radar limit signs. People are aware of what they're doing. But I still fully believe the petition is necessary. I mean, we have very young people crossing this street. This was crossing with a crossing guard across a marked intersection. Like, we need to slow the traffic down. Absolutely. So thank you again.
Message has come through loud and clear. And again, I appreciate your kind words, but you and Tiffany have been the true community leaders to make Upper Gauge and other arterial roads from a citywide policy standpoint, hopefully much safer for all of our families and kids, both now and in the future. I can't thank you enough, Tim and Tiffany. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. I know this was maybe just a little bit off from normal protocol and procedure, but in light of the sensitivity of the issue, I'm deeply grateful. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks again, Tim.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson, and thank you, Tim. You're welcome to stay. If you turn off your video, I'd appreciate it just for bandwidth and so that I can clearly see the councillors. And I need a seconder to receive the delegation since Councillor Jackson is moving it. So Councillor Jackson and Councillor Pauls.
Through you, Madam Chair, this is Alicia from Clerks. I was just hoping, as long as Councillor Jackson and Pauls are agreeable, that we could just take one vote to receive the delegation as well as refer it to Transportation Operations and Maintenance staff for appropriate action.
Perfect, Alicia. Perfect, Madam Chair. Thank you.
The vote will be on your screen. Here it is. Councillor Ferguson? Councillor Ferguson, have you voted? Are you having difficulty voting? Could you give me some indication of how you're voting? Thumbs up for Councillor Ferguson. Great. And that carries unanimously, 10-0. Thank you. And thank you, Tim and Tiffany. We are now on item 7.2, which is Peter Nielsen, respecting the Trillium Open Space Erosion Protection Plan. I'll call on Peter Nielsen to delegate. Please remember to unmute your microphone and turn on your video, and you will have 5 minutes to present, sir. when you start.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair, I do have a presentation to accompany my speaking component. So I trust you can see that screen.
Yes.
Yes. So with respect to this presentation, my name is Peter Nielsen, and I'm presenting on behalf of Robert and Valerie Nielsen, who live at 2 Campview Road. The subject of this presentation is the city's property that's highlighted on green on this slide, and it's known as Trillium Open Space. This property is located north of the QEW, west of 50 Road, and it's directly adjacent to our parents' home at 2 Campview. Just as some background on this property, in 2007, the Stormwater Master Plan was completed by Aquifer Beach on behalf of the city. And this excerpt shows that the Trillium Open Space was identified as erosion site number 47. And another excerpt from the Master Plan report, the Trillium Open Space was identified as being rated number 2 for restoration at a cost of $117,000 at that time. Some additional background on the Trillium Open Space. It is part of the city's infrastructure of storm sewers and drainage systems. It drains over 600 acres of land, drains thousands of liters of surface water runoff through the sewer system and ultimately through Trillium Open Space. It's a large drainage area that includes city industrial parks, residential subdivisions, a section of the escarpment, and major roads and highways. Additional information on the Trillium Open Space. In 2019, SNC Lavalin completed their report, which was titled Shoreline Inventory and Assessment of City of Hamilton Owned Assets. That report documented the condition of 33 city-owned shoreline sites. And the SNC Lavalin report identified Trillium Open Space as being dangerous to the uninformed general public, having stability issues and no protection. And the report also identified that it does now require replacement instead of the restoration that was identified in 2007. Another excerpt from the SNC Lavalin report. In November of 2019, the staff report that was presented to the Public Works Committee identified Trillium Open Space as being one of the highest priorities for shoreline improvements to be completed within a 3-year time window. This slide demonstrates the scope of the property damage that's being experienced along the Trillium Open Space. Erosion and undercutting of the lake bed and shoreline has caused armour stones to have collapsed into the stormwater channel. And this slide in particular shows the proximity of the shoreline that has deteriorated, and it's very close to the North Service Road and to the QEW. You will notice that our parents' property, 2 Campview, is just at the bottom left of this slide, right next to the Trillium Open Space. So the summary of this presentation, we are requesting that the city consider an integrated shoreline restoration plan to be prepared for the city's property. 2 Campview Road is Robert and Valerie Nielsen's retirement home, and they intend to live happily here for many years. Just to demonstrate that they are both active members of the community. Valerie Nielsen, she recently published her latest book, Golden Child, a Child in Wartime England, and that was a finalist in the 2021 Hamilton Arts Council Literary Awards. Robert Nielsen, he's the president of Potlatch Publications, a renowned Canadian publishing company, still operating out of his home office at 2 Campview. And we're asking that the city consider expediting an erosion protection plan to protect Trillium Open Space and to protect 2 Campview from catastrophic damage. So on behalf of Valerie and Robert Nielsen, thank you for receiving this presentation.
Thank you, sir. Well within your 5 minutes. All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Nielsen? Mr. Nielsen, could I just ask you to unshare your presentation so that I can see all the councillors?
Sorry, I'm attempting to.
I have a collection of about 3 of them that I can see. Thank you. And Councillor Pearson, you have the floor, madam.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. And Robert, thank you. It is Robert. Peter, sorry, Peter. My apologies. I'm looking at the sheet that I just wrote for your parents. Thank you so much for the presentation. Okay, sorry, it's gone to, give me 1 second. Great, there you are. Thank you. I just wanted to thank you for your presentation. Can I just ask the first item you referred to, because I have the report you spoke of. I had it here and I read it. I was reading it again this morning before the meeting. The SNC Lavalin report, that was the one that was done in, I'm just seeing, it was a report attached back in, shoot, there's no dates on it. Isn't that unfortunate? Anyways, you mentioned 2 items, 2 locations on the SNC Lavalin report. The first one, can you just reiterate? Because I have 2 sites. There's 1137 and 35 North Service Road, or 35 North Services Road, Trillium, and Site 8 Lewis Road. Was that the first one you were referring to? It's Site 7.
Yeah, through the chair, the first report that I referenced was done in 2007, but the most recent report is the SNC Lavalin report, and that report identified Site 7, number 113735, as being the Trillium Open Space. Lewis Road is further, just further west of the
Correct.
site.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And that report was done, and I just found it here, June 11, 2019. Yes. And there's 2 sites. And the second site, I think, is the one that's right next to your parents. That's Site 9?
Through the chair, it's Site number 7.
Okay, that's the first one. Is that the one closest to your parents?
Yes.
Okay, so Site 7 is on the other side?
That's correct.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure that I'm looking at it correctly from what I have here. And I think the direction, so as you're aware, Peter, that out of all the studies in the report, there were some 33 that came forward in 2019. Actually, there were a couple that were removed because they were private property in Ward 10. There were 2. And so we were down to 31 sites in total for shoreline review. And of the 31, 25 of them were in Ward 10. So I'm well aware of the shoreline issues that are occurring from one end to the other of the whole ward. And I know our staff are diligently evaluating and doing what they can. So I think today direction is going to be that staff take this information away and review this and certainly come back with what we can. Now there was some funding, and I maybe not through you because you wouldn't know, but maybe at the appropriate time, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask staff, because I believe there was some funding back in 2019, maybe even 20, for some shoreline protection, and some shoreline was repaired in Ward 10. It was a federal and provincial infrastructure program. So maybe at the appropriate time, I could ask that to staff, and then I won't be happy to refer the whole item to staff for review.
Okay, and so when we come back, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds left.
Thank you.
And if you need more, I at this point don't have any additional speakers, so we can extend your time if necessary.
That's fine.
Now, who is it going to in staff? Nobody's jumping.
I'm not sure who's here.
Oh,
I'm
Craig.
here. Through
Craig?
the chair.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay,
So
through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Pearson. Councillor Pearson, you are correct. This is a project that we do have funding for. It's part of the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund.
Right.
So that is a $31 million project, as you mentioned, that would be for all of the sites identified going forward. Any kind of detail, I can refer it to Cynthia Graham, but I hope that answers your question.
Maria?
Thank you, and I appreciate that. I just wanted it for the public record so that Peter knows this as well, so there are some funds we're working on it, but there is a process, and I take it this is going to be referred now, Madam Chair. I'll refer it, and staff will take it and review this in the process, and certainly keep me informed, and I'd be happy to keep Peter informed as well. Is that and I'll leave it at that. Hopefully, I've met my time.
You've got a minute left.
Can I put the motion on the floor to refer this to staff then for direction to review and come back with to work with me and come back with recommendations?
Certainly, and I have no other speakers that have indicated, so I think we can go to that. So that you will move the recommendation to receive the delegation and refer this to staff for a report back.
Perfect. Okay, Peter? Good.
Okay.
Seconder, I think Councillor Ferguson said he's waving. I think he'll second this for me.
Councillor Ferguson, you were looking to second it. Okay. Okay, so moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor
Madam Chair,
Ferguson.
can I just ask a quick question also? I saw Cynthia turn her screen on. Maybe to help us along, particularly the delegate, if the money's been approved for this and it's number 47, how far away are we from completing number 47?
Cynthia Graham.
Through the chair, this is one of the sites that we're going to start looking at design in the next little bit. So our first project was the Hamilton Harbour Waterfront Trail that we brought a report forward for in December. This one is on the list for looking at design in the next priorities. So we can come back to the councillor and to Peter and his parents with some information about the process. It will be require quite a bit of study, so we will have to take a look at what it all is included in looking at this site. And there is a Hamilton water asset on it, so it would be a joint sectional study.
Oh, right.
So Cynthia, when you say the next little bit, does that mean 2020 you'll start?
It's through the chair, 2021, which is now. And
2021, you're right.
Sorry, and I think we're gonna start looking at the design this year. Yeah, we'll take a look at it this year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Councillor Ferguson, for those questions and the further clarifications provided. And I just, for committee's indulgence and reference, I do know that there is a severe amount of erosion at the waterfront next to Peter's parents' house. I remember when I was campaigning election time, I mean, I looked over and went, wow, there's a huge amount of erosion. So I know there's a lot of work that staff have to work on how we're going to address this going forward, because it's not just a matter of backfilling or whatever. You have to make sure that it's something that's going to stay in place, especially in light of storms, et cetera, that hit along that shoreline. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And now we'll wait for the vote. So the vote is to receive the delegation and refer it to staff for a report back to Public Works. Thank you, and that carries unanimously, 9-0. And so we'll be moving on to item number 9.1 under discussion items, which is maintenance standards for municipal highways policy, PW 818096. And may I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the recommendations in the report? It's moved by Councillor Ferguson and seconded by Councillor Pearson. Thank you. Is there any discussion regarding item 9.1? Seeing none, we'll need an electronic vote. And please indicate your vote when it comes. It's on the screen. Oh, you guys are. Thank you, and that passes 10-0. So it carries. And motions. Item 10.1 is Lock Street South Business Improvement Area, BIA lighting. Councillor Danko, please introduce your motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm moving this on behalf of Councillor Wilson. I don't know if Anybody in particular would like to second this? I see Councillor Pauls. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Pauls. Yeah.
So this is whereas the residents of Kirkendall and the Lock Street South BIA patrons previously enjoyed enhanced seasonal lighting on the hydro poles along Lock Street, whereas the outlets were removed when Electra replaced all hydro poles along Lock Street South in 2018, and whereas improvements to the lighting on the street increases activity and vitality to the neighborhood and promotes a healthy and engaged community. Therefore, be it resolved that $5,000 be provided to the Lock Street Business Improvement Area to help support the addition of outlets to the hydro poles from the Ward 1 Area Rating Capital Reinvestment Discretionary Fund, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized and directed to execute any required agreements and ancillary documents with such terms and conditions in a form satisfactory to the city solicitor. And just quickly, Madam Chair, so this is $5,000 from the Ward 1 Area Rating Reserve, and I believe Electra is already, if not already undertaken this, is ready to do this work, and it's a much needed improvement for the Lock Street BIA. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I'm sorry, who was the seconder?
It's Councillor Pauls.
Councillor Pauls. Okay. Thank you. And I don't see any other requests to speak, so we'll have an electronic vote. Just tablet, and that carries 10-0. Thank you. Item 10.2, which is the Inch Park play structure improvements at 400 Queensdale Avenue East. Councillor Pauls, please introduce your motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I will not read it all, but I'll talk to it after it, and we'll go right to the therefore. Be it resolved that $150,000 of funding be allocated from the Ward 7 Capital Infrastructure Reserve 108057 to support the implement of a new inclusive Inch Park play structure, rubber surfing, and shade opportunity be approved, and that the general manager of Public Works on their designated be authorized and directed to approve and execute any required agreements and ancillary documents with such terms and condition in a form of satisfactory to the city solicitor. And I just want to bring your attention that the park is at 400 Queensdale, and this park, the playground has ended its cycle. But so this park, with partnership with Hamilton Challenger Baseball, they're doing fundraiser to implement the number one, the best park we could do, the state-of-the-art inclusive play structure. And as you know, and I know the staff know him very well, Mike Moore has been involved in this for almost 30 years. He is an amazing man. He volunteers his time. And I want to tell you a quick story. I met him actually when we did a trip to Haiti. And I couldn't believe he was telling me about his involvement with the Hamilton Park and with the Hamilton Challengers Baseball. And I got to know the man. He's incredible. He dedicates himself to helping third world country and to help here in Hamilton. And it's a pleasure to really know him. And but I want you to know that because of COVID, we couldn't play baseball. So last year, he did a baseball drive-through for all the people that were disabled. And with the help of the staff, and I want to thank the staff, we turned the parking lot into a baseball field. And the cars would come in and go from first base to second base, and they would answer questions, they would get a prize, and it was so wonderful to see those participants so excited about playing baseball in a different way of COVID. So I really want to thank Mike Moore. He is incredible. And one quick story, his son came to Haiti with me, and we did our first 5K race in a third world country, Cape Haitian, and his son was the first wheelchair person that actually did the race with the help with the UN there. And I will never forget it. So this park is going to be state of the park to be inclusive. And I'm looking forward always also to work with Rebecca Shea to put a swing set for the wheelchair. So thank you for your support. I hope you support it, and thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councillor Pauls, do you have a seconder for that?
I would love to have actually Councillor Nan, because she has a wheelchair swing set in her ward, and Rebecca Shea as well has helped out, and I know we're going to work well together. So thank you, and thank you, Councillor Jackson. You're my neighbor, so thank you.
All right, so moved by Councillor Pauls and seconded by Councillor Nan, and I see no speaker requests, so we'll need a electronic vote. It's on your screen. Thank you. That carries 10-0, so it's unanimous. Item number 10.3 is Ferguson Avenue North beautification. Councillor Farr, please introduce your motion, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Marula. Whereas following considerable damage that was caused by the occupation of approximately 80 tents at Hamilton's largest encampment site during the summer of 2020, dozens of Ferguson Street residents participated in a walkabout with this ward councillor in an effort to share their ideas on how we may restore and enhance their public realm. Whereas there is interest from Ward 2 residents for enhanced beautification on Ferguson Avenue North from Cannon Street East to Barton Street East. Whereas beautification in the form of planting beds, hanging baskets are appreciated by residents and visitors to the city of Hamilton. Whereas beautification increases the public profile of our city. Whereas there is currently no funding in the horticultural section for the proposed enhancement, therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to install 5 perennial shrub beds on Ferguson Avenue North. That's from Cannon Street East to Barton Street East at a cost of $10,000 to be funded by the Ward 2 Capital Infrastructure Reserve. B, that hanging baskets be installed on existing light standards on Ferguson Ave North from Cannon Street East to Barton Street East at a cost of $8,000 to be funded by the Ward 2 Capital Infrastructure Reserve. And C, that 19050 0.16 FTE for the annual planting, irrigation, and maintenance of perennial shrub beds and hanging baskets on Ferguson Avenue North from Cannon Street East to Barton Street East be included in the Environmental Services Division 2021 annual base operating budget. Big thanks to our staff from Environmental Services, Forestry, Horticulture. Really appreciated their quick work. Dozens of residents of 185 and 195 Ferguson did participate in a walkabout with me. These ideas are their ideas, in addition to other elements, measures that we've completed since the unfortunate encampment, and others that are underway. And that includes ideas that are underway from the residents with respect to public art, coming on utility boxes in the spring, and thanks to Ken Coit in public art and public places. We have already erected extensive new fencing along the west side, massive tree stump removal, ongoing repairs where interlock road bricks went missing, and more need to be done there. Trimming of broken or sawed off branches has been done on the trees that do exist, and a coaxial box has been permanently repaired. That was a problem actually long before the unfortunate events of the summer. Again, this is seconded by Councillor Marula. I appreciate the committee's indulgence and hope for your support.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. This is my favorite street, by the way, but
I guess so.
but I'm just a little puzzled. I don't know whether it's a typo, but the total capital cost to do all this renovation is $18,000, but the annual maintenance cost is $19,000. Is that right?
Councillor Farr?
I'd have to defer to staff on that one. They assisted me with that item. Let's see.
So let's see.
Is that
Who
Craig?
would that be? Craig, yeah. I was looking for your name. to see
Craig,
which-
do you just, this is different arithmetic, is it? New math?
Well, the annual operating costs include the 0.16 FTE, but it also includes having to purchase and install and maintain the hanging baskets every single year. So this year, the hanging baskets will be purchased as a one-time purchase through the area rating fund, but going forward, it will be added to the operating budget and will have to be purchased every year.
So it costs $11,000 a year to water those plants, does it?
It's not just the hanging baskets, counselor. It's also weeding and the water costs for the perennial beds, the general maintenance. Even though they're perennials, they still require maintenance. Otherwise, they quickly revert to weeds.
Okay, it just seems strange, but since it's my favorite street, I guess I can let it go.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any additional speakers, and so that's item 10.3. It was moved by Councillor Farr, seconded by Councillor Marula, and the vote is and that carries unanimously. We're on 10.4, Montgomery Park pedestrian lighting improvements in Ward 4. Councillor Marula, you want to introduce your motion, please?
I will indeed, Madam Chair. And it's moved by myself and seconded by Ward 5 Councillor Chad Collins. Whereas Montgomery Park is an active community park in Ward 4 with pathways that promote active transportation through the community. Whereas parks provide local opportunities for physical fitness and recreation throughout the year. Whereas pedestrian pathway lighting exists in a portion of Montgomery Park, supporting commuters and park users, and is in need of life cycle replacement. And whereas the Northern Pathway Loop and Southern Pathway Loop area of Montgomery Park Pathway is not currently lit, and park users would benefit with the addition of a pedestrian pathway lighting, therefore be it resolved that $194,577 be allocated from the Ward 4 Special Capital Reserve Reinvestment Fund to implement new pedestrian pathway lighting along the north and south pathway loops of Montgomery Park, and that the existing pathway lights be replaced. B, that $4,500 for the annual cost of electricity and maintenance be added to the Parks and Cemeteries section 2021 annual base operating budget, and C, that the mayor and city clerk be authorized and directed to execute any required agreements and auxiliary documents with such terms and conditions in a form satisfactory to the city solicitor. And I thank you in advance for your support.
Thank you, Councillor Marula. I don't see any speakers, and so we will need we'll need an electronic vote. It was Councillor Marula, and the seconder was Councillor Collins. And the vote is on your screen. And that carries unanimously, 10-0. Item 10.5, Father Sean O'Sullivan Memorial Park improvements at 1139 Green Hill Avenue in Hamilton in Ward 5. Councillor Collins, please introduce your motion.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Thank you.
Terrific. I'm not going to read the whereases. This is a simple replacement of an existing structure, and the motion is that a play structure and safety surfacing be installed at Father Sean O'Sullivan Memorial Park, 1139 Green Hill Avenue, at an estimated cost of $120,000 to be funded from the Ward 5 Capital Infrastructure Reserve. And there's the traditional Part B that's attached to most of these motions.
Thank you. And do you have a seconder for that, or do you need one?
You can pick one if you want. I usually go to Councillor Marula. I seconded his Montgomery Park. He can do this one.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Collins, seconded by Councillor Marula. We're on item 10.5, and the vote should be on your screen in a minute. Councillor Pearson, did you want to speak to this? Councillor Pearson?
Sorry, Madam Chair, my e-scribe just shut down, so I'm voting with my finger. I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and that carries 10-0. Thank you. Item 10.6 is Dover Park improvements, 66 Dover Drive, Hamilton, Ward 5. Councillor Collins, do you want to introduce your motion on that one? Councillor Collins, have we lost you? So shall we move on to 10.7 and come back, Madam Clerk?
Well, we can, Madam Chair, we can move forward with it, knowing that he does support it, and when he comes back, move on to the next one.
Sure, sure.
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
Oh, here he is.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Oh, Lord. I'm assuming Green Hill passed. That's when mine cut out.
It did.
And now I'm on, is it Dover that's next?
It's Dover that you're on now. Yes, sir.
I'll move that one, and that is a replacement place structure as well. And I don't have that motion in front of me. I believe it's in the amount of 100,000. It's from area rating, and we had to, just as an explanation, we had to remove our old structure at Sir Isaac Brock School, which is soon to be demolished or closed by the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board. Seconded by Councillor Marula.
Okay. And Councillor Ferguson, did you have a question with regard to that?
No, I just offered to second it, but Councillor Rula got it ahead of me.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I don't see anyone looking to ask any questions about it, so we'll require an electronic vote. So it's item 10, moved by Councillor Collins and seconded by Councillor Marula. The vote's on the screen. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. We're on item 10.7, Red Hill Neighborhood Park Improvements, 320 Albright Road in Hamilton in Ward 5. Councillor Collins, please introduce your motion if you're still with us. There
I
you
am,
are.
thank you. Similar to the other two that I had in front of you. This is one where we're replacing some recreational space that was lost with the closure of Red Hill School, as well as the pending closure of Elizabeth Bagshaw School. And this is to install a new play structure at a city-owned park. And again, this is from the Ward 5 area rating reserve. Seconded by Councillor Ferguson.
Seconded by Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see no one asking any questions, so we'll need an electronic vote. So please indicate your vote. It's on the screen. And that carries unanimously. Moving on to item 11.1. This is notices of motion. Road resurfacing and sidewalk replacement on Oakland Drive between Kentley Drive and Ellingwood Avenue and on Ellingwood Avenue in Hamilton in Ward 5. Councillor Collins, I understand you'll be moving to waive the rules.
Yes,
to allow
thanks.
this.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. And I'm asking to do that in order to try to arrange for these roads to be repaved and the sidewalks done this year. The longer we wait, the less chance I have of getting it through a tendering process. So I've moved first to waive the rules in order to allow the introduction of the motion this afternoon.
Sure. Moved by yourself, seconded by Councillor Jackson.
Sounds good.
To waive the rules on the notice of motion at 11.1, and the vote's on the screen.
Mine came and went pretty quick there. I'm not sure if I got my vote in, but
it looks like it. We're carried
perfect.
Unanimously. Okay, and so now we will need, is there any discussion on the motion?
Seconded by Councillor Jackson again. Thank you.
Councillor Jackson again. Okay, and we'll need an electronic vote to actually approve the motion on item 11.1. It's on the screen. Councillor who? Councillor Farr. Thumbs up. Thank you. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Now, may I have a motion? May I have a mover and a seconder to approve the amendments to the outstanding business list, which is item 12.1. Moved by Councillor Nan, seconded by Councillor Ferguson. And if no one has any discussion on that, we'll need an electronic vote. Thank you. That carries unanimously. 0. And now, may I please have a mover and a seconder to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by everyone. Seconded by, who hasn't seconded anything? Councillor Farr. And you need to vote on that before you leave. That carries 10. Thank you very much for your work on this meeting, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you,
everyone.
Madam Chair. Good job. Take care.